Alright, now let's talk about the applications of the DTG Rip Pro program itself. Let's start by looking at our drop-down menus. Now under File, we don't have a whole lot here. We do have print PostScript files, which this allows you to take an actual PostScript file and print it. Now this is something for probably more of the advanced or the graphic artist who does output PostScript files. Not really going to go into in-depth detail about this. If you do want to learn more about this, you can refer to your manual for this. Now under Configure, we have Configure Inputs, Configure Outputs, Configure RipPro Settings, and then of course, like we saw in Validation, Validate and Remove Validation. Now the Configure Inputs and Configure Outputs is the same thing as these two icon buttons here. We do use them a lot, so there's some buttons here that we can get quick access to it. We'll start with Configure Inputs. This is for managing our hot folders. Our hot folders are our folders that we can create to actually make things a little bit easier on us. The hot folder, when we click Print and we choose the DTG kiosk with white ink, for example, that is basically the hot folder. Now we think of it as a virtual printer, but what's actually happening is the file is going into this hot folder. This folder is scanned every 3 seconds, which is the default. When the DTG Rip Pro sees a file has entered that, it's going to take it and open it up in the program and process it. Now for installing the software, it's going to automatically create the needed hot folder for you. You can continue to run off of one hot folder if you don't feel like you need to create others. But if you want to go ahead and do that, it might make things easier for you once you really start to learn how to navigate around this software. You can find out the exact step-by-step in your manual on how to do that. Notice here as we have the DTG kiosk highlighted, it shows us here that the output device for that is in fact the DTG kiosk printer. The output queue is set for output queue 1. Now if you're only running one DTG printer, then you're probably only going to have one output queue there. That's what's automatically created when you install. So it's really not a lot to worry about. But if you are connecting multiple printers, you may have multiple output queues. Then you'll need to, from time to time, come into inputs and manage it. Basically, inputs is anything that's going to be printed is going to come into a hot folder and then be opened up by the RIP program. In that beginning step, it sort of needs to know the whole process of what it's intended to do with this file that it's about to print. So anytime we want to set up this beginning function, we're going to use our inputs to go in to set these things. Now the PDF and the TIFF, those are basically just generators to generate a PDF using the RIP software. If you have a graphic program and you wish to create a PDF, instead of printing to the printer, you just print to the Power RIP PDF, and it will generate a PDF file for you. It's the same thing for the TIFF. It'll generate a TIFF format for you as well. Not something that we need for printing, just something that you have there if you want to create these files. Now if I have the hot folder selected and I choose Advanced, this is where I see the timing intervals. Remember how I mentioned that the RIP program is going to scan the hot folder, and every 3 seconds, if a file has come in those 3 seconds, it's going to take it up. Now you can change the intervals in which it scans. Probably don't have a whole lot of need for doing this. If you feel like you want to have it scan in less time or greater time, you can change that. File activity verification, the number of times to verify this file not being written, that's again something that you really don't need to change. You can leave that at the default of 2. Add and remove is how we're going to create hot folders and remove hot folders that we don't need anymore. Job priority, like any PostScript file, is basically the priority that it's going to assign to it if it gets multiple files. 1 being a low priority, and it will go up to 99 being the highest priority. If we're doing stuff one at a time, job priority is not a big concern for us either. Now let's go ahead and talk about outputs. Outputs is where we really manage and see cues. We can do things with the cue like pause it, like it is now. We can also resume it. We can look at any jobs that might be held in the queue. The output queue, one little thing that's created a little bit different than the actual native driver is it holds on to the jobs after they're printed. This is how we can go ahead and select them again and reprint them, or tell it to run off multiple, t-shirts. Another thing here, we can edit these as to what they're looking at. We can change things. If we need to tell it to look at a different USB port, or if we're working with a computer that's hooked up to LPT ports or anything, we can change this here. Now under our advanced setting here, this is basically telling us the type of printer that it's communicating with. For example, the kiosk it uses a 2200. It's going to know to send the job in that basically that format that the 2200 reads. We also can set priority here as well, which we looked at in inputs. A couple of other settings we have here is spool print document to disk, something we're always going to have. Either start immediately after page is spooled, or start printing immediately. Generally we're going to leave that at start printing immediately. Another selection here is print directly to the printer, not needed to be used. And then underneath that, keep printed pages, do not delete after printing. This is what tells us to hold on to that job in the print queue so we can continue to use that job. What we see in the actual RIP program under jobs is what's in our print queue. If this is not checked after you print a job, it will remove itself from the DTG RIP Pro software. And we're going to get out of here, and we're going to go back up to Configure, and we're going to look at Configure RIP Pro Settings. What this deals with here, the amount of time that the output queue holds on to a job that we've printed. Basically what we see here is going to be held for 4 hours. After 4 hours it will automatically start removing these. If we don't keep removing them, we'll build up so many jobs that we can tie up computer resources. Now you can set these yourself. Generally, if you want to work with different jobs throughout the day, 4 hours might not be enough time. You may want to set that time to a day's work of 8 hours, or maybe even take it to 10 hours. That way you're actually getting the jobs, holding on to the jobs there for the entire day. If you decide you don't want a job in there, you can go ahead and delete it yourself. Priority again is going to give you a little bit of control over those priority settings that we've set and how they're going to actually be looked at. Alright, let's get out of here. Under Configure, like I mentioned before, the last thing there is the validation. We've already talked about that. If you want to see more about it, go to the validation portion of this video. Now under Utilities, under Edit Custom Density Curves, this is where we can go to create basically our own color profiles. Now this is not recommended for the novice. Even some of the more experienced people may not be able to really understand how to make their own color profiles. I recommend this only for the graphic expert who really knows what a color density curve is and how it works. Now under printer and ink configuration, and we have under here printer template select. This is where we deal with our step and repeat templates. Now if we had multiple printers, we might have different models of DTG on here, but we only have the kiosk installed right now. Under our template, step and repeat template, this is where we'll actually choose a particular template. We would actually select that template and click OK. this will be the template that it uses. So when you actually are in the printing process and you're down at the bottom of our list where it says step and repeat, you would go in and choose one of your labels. Now we'll cover how to create a template in just a moment. Now under ink configuration, here's where we have control over the type of printer that we're using. Now of course most people are going to be using a 4-color process with white. This is where we can change some of these settings. If we didn't want to use a printer with white ink, we had no white ink running through this printer and we were doing a double color, or we were doing a light highlight color printer, we would have our regular cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and we would have more colors to help control things like that. Down here under ink cost per liter, this is where you control the cost of the ink. If ink costs were to go up or go down, you would come in here and enter that cost per liter so that your ink cost calculator would actually be giving you the right prices. Over here we have density adjustment. All of them are set to the maximum of 100%. If you felt like you were getting a little too much white down under an underbase, you could come under and slide down a little bit on the white. What we're doing is backing off just a little bit of the amount of ink that's laid down. For the most part, you may want to leave these at 100%. This is something that you really wouldn't want to adjust until you felt a little bit more comfortable with how the RIP software works and what type of effects you get during the printing process.